keeping me safe and sound. And when I fall, you tied a rope to me. You're blessing me every day. I was down with an illusion, like a sparrow with broken wings. But now I shine with your reflection on me. I'm getting back up on my feet. That you showed up was written in my palm. You are a statement, explode like a bomb. I get to push myself to victory. You make me winner. You cut me loose and set me free. You make me win in every way. You showed me how to spread my wings. Yes, I'm the winner of the day. You cut me loose and set me free. You make me win in every way. You showed me how to spread my wings. Yes, I'm the winner of the day. Yes, I'm the winner, yeah. 'Cause I'm the winner, yeah. Am I awake or am I dreaming? So far gone, I won't look back. And when I move, there ain't no stopping me. You're pushing me up to the top. I saw the clouds looking angry, but then the sky reached my mind. And when I spaced out, I see the possibilities unfolding the way that I want. That you showed up was written in the palm. You are a statement, explode like a bomb. I get to push myself to victory. You make me winner. You cut me loose and set me free. You cut me loose. You make me win in every way. Win in every way. You showed me how to spread my wings. Yes, I'm the winner of the day. You cut me loose and set me free. You make me win in every way. You showed me how to spread my wings. Yes, I'm the winner of the day. Yes, I'm the winner, yeah. 'Cause I'm the winner, yeah. 'Cause I'm the winner, yeah, yeah, yeah. Ooh. Yes, I'm the winner, yeah.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be live. It's been a minute. I know I've been super busy doing my thing over here at Salesforce and just so excited to have Robin joining me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen. I'm super excited to be here.
I'm super excited to have you. Robin sent me over her book and I was like, this is amazing. And I couldn't wait to share it with all of you. We've got some people joining us already. I see Precious, who loves the intro. Precious, thank you so much. That means a lot coming from you. Precious has got her own book out too, which is pretty fantastic. So definitely check Precious out. But Robin, this amazing book, tell me, how did you get here?
Yes, how did I get here? Well, I never thought that I would end up in sales, right? I think I'm like a lot of people where it's maybe not the career that you imagine when you're younger, when you're, for studying in college or whatever it is. But my career path has been one of interesting zigs and zags. And I, at a certain point, decided to pursue my passion for health and nutrition. And so I started off as a health coach. a little bit later in my career. We can talk about the first part later. But as a health coach, I didn't realize that that would actually be a boot camp training in sales. And that's what it ended up being. Is I first learned sales in terms of selling my own services as a health coach. Well, fast forward after a few years, and I was told of an opportunity to take on a B2B sales role for a company that makes professional grade nutritional supplements. And so in that role, I would be selling these nutritional supplements to healthcare practitioners as an additional revenue stream in their practices, but also to get incredible clinical results with their patients. And at first I thought, well, I cannot do this. I'm not a salesperson. Who am I to do this? But when someone helped me to kind of reframe that and understand that it's really about connecting with people and providing solutions to them and helping them in their clinical practices, everything changed for me. And, to me, it was like, oh, I can do that. And that sounds great. So I took on that role, and I ended up absolutely loving it, thriving in it. In the 5 years that I was in that position, I actually 10x'd my territory into a multi-million-dollar territory. And that was just an incredible experience, enjoyable, such a learning experience. And I really came to appreciate what sales is truly about and what an incredible opportunity it can afford you in terms of the freedom and creativity that you can use in your role. And then also just the financial earnings as well.
Yeah.
So,
it's a big opportunity to really own your destination and your income. And I love that for the financial independence it offers, right?
Exactly.
I love everything you said right there. I one part of the book I found really just like amazing. A few years ago, that idea of always be closing, the ABCs, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I sort of reclaimed for myself is always be caring. And that
Yes.
certainly aligns with what you're describing of being
Mm-hmm.
of service to others, and that it's really about helping. But what I really thought was interesting in the book was your ABCs of heart-powered sales. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I had a little bit of fun with this one. So to me, instead of always be closing, which is, we know that's an antiquated approach, right?
Yeah.
So instead, always be connecting. You always want to be connecting with your prospects and clients in a genuine way. Always be curious, right? And anticipate, but don't assume. Ask questions, conduct your proper discovery so that you can really understand what your prospects and clients need. And then always be classy. And that's a little tongue in cheek, but always be classy in the sense of don't bash the competition. Learn to self-regulate when you're disappointed because things didn't go the way you wanted. Learn to kind of, manage your emotions, which of course is really important. And I know we'll talk a little bit more about that. So those are my 3 ABCs of how to conduct sales in a new way.
I love that. That was, and it really stood out to me because, that dated mindset of always be closing is what's sort of put such a negative light on sales,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
make, women or anyone
mm-hmm,
look at sales as something, not intentionally to seek out,
mm-hmm.
but that negative connotation. So, I thought always be caring was cool, but I really loved the connecting, be curious, and then keep it classy. I was like, that's really amazing.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
kudos for that. So what does heart powered sales mean to you? You wrote a book.
Yes. Yeah. So, so I really, after enjoying many years of success in sales, I really felt compelled to write down and share what had helped me in my experience as a seller. And so heart powered sales is really about how to connect to the power of your heart and leverage the power of your heart in order to create more genuine and authentic relationships with your prospects and clients, and in order to create a higher level of confidence in yourself. Especially as women, and especially get women in sales, and given this dated persona of the salesperson that is pushy and salesy, we don't want to be that way, and we certainly don't try to take that approach, but we may sometimes be fearful of coming across that way. And I really believe in connecting to the power of your heart so that you can have more confidence and come across in a more service-oriented, genuine way with your clients. So that's the approach that I lay out in my book.
Yeah, no, and it's great. So tell us, why is emotional intelligence so important to that piece, to what you're describing?
The reason why it's so important is because emotions are the filter through which we all experience everything. So as sellers, even though, we're well prepared, we've qualified our prospects, we are well versed in the features and benefits of our products, we come to the table with our own fears, hopes, desires, everything else. And those emotions can cloud and kind of, they can cloud our perspective and influence the way we approach things. So that's one aspect to why emotional intelligence is important, because you need to learn how to become self-aware and self-regulate so that those emotions don't negatively impact your sales process. The other reason is because we're all human, and we all make decisions based on emotion and then justifying with logic, right? In terms of our buying decisions. And we are also self-preserving human beings, and we have this kind of this amphibian brain that wants to protect us. And so whenever, as buyers, we are approached by a seller, our first instinct is to self-preserve, protect, put up your defenses. And it's really a fear-based reaction. And it's not something that is conscious or logical. It's just a reaction. And so as a seller, you have to overcome that fear-based filter or reaction from your buyer, from your prospect. And in order to do that, that requires awareness and empathy. So forming your emotional connection with a buyer is really a first step in establishing trust and establishing that connection. Again, with our ABCs, always be connecting. How do you do that? Always be curious, always be asking questions. And once you've done that and established a connection and a relationship to a certain degree, then you can go on to a more logical process of discovery and finding out needs and wants.
Yeah, and that's, I 100% agree. I mean, the way I usually describe it to people I'm training is, it's not about you, right?
Yes.
It's about your prospect and your ability to connect with them. You have to let go of all the things that make it about you, because it's not
Mhm.
about you.
Mhm.
And so
That's
that's
right.
though you phrased it a lot differently,
Yeah.
but I love that. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So what are some actionable ways to build up that emotional intelligence?
Hmm. So bearing in mind that emotional intelligence is really about your self-awareness and then social awareness, right? So being aware of your own emotions and learning to self-regulate those, and then being aware of what other people are feeling and demonstrating empathy. So how do you do that? Well, first of all, within ourselves, we have to just notice. So much of it just starts with awareness and noticing, right? And so when you can take a moment to pause, ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What's going on? And part of what will help inform that is paying attention to not only your thoughts, but also like your physical sensations. Are you, are your palms sweaty? Is your heart beating fast? Those are all indications, to help you be clued in, like, oh, wow, I guess I'm a little nervous right now, right? Or, oh gosh, I guess I'm really excited right now. Right? It's not always a negative emotion. It can be very positive. I'm really excited right now. And that's wonderful. But, just before a big meeting, you want to tone it down, regulate that, right? So it's noticing, it's being aware, it's accepting, right? We don't want to pass judgment on ourselves for being nervous or excited or anything else. It doesn't help anything to be judgmental. But at the same time, just so noticing, accepting, and then trying to gain a little bit of perspective, taking a step back and understanding it. For example, if you are nervous or fearful about a meeting, asking yourself some more objective questions to help bring yourself back into perspective about what's really going on here, so that you're not spinning into an emotion-driven place where you're not really thinking logically. So that's one piece in terms of your own self-awareness. But the bigger piece, and bringing it back to heart-powered sales, is emotion is not a bad thing. You can leverage it in a positive way. And if you can connect to your heart, you can transform any kind of nervousness or anxiety into a positive emotion of gratitude and love and trust. And you can bring that emotion into a sales meeting or into an engagement and have it work to everyone's benefit, right? So your heart is a great way to kind of level set and bring yourself back to center, back to heart, and create positive emotion while also being aware of what's really going on. So that's one piece of it for yourself. And then we can get into also how to build that EQ when it comes to others and in interrelating with others.
Yeah, no, that resonates with me. I mean, for me, I think of it as first acknowledging whatever it is I'm feeling, and that acknowledgement. And then for me, I take it back to my Dale Carnegie early sales training of, what's the worst possible outcome from how to eliminate worry? Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Well, let's just improve upon that. And so what can I do to improve upon it? And then that makes me feel more in control of like my emotions, so then I just can move forward. And that's one way I use personally.
That's absolutely right. I mean, really asking yourself what's the worst that can happen that's an important exercise. It's an important exercise, because when you realize that really, the sky is not going to fall, no one's going to, it really helps to bring things back into perspective, right? So, so I think that's an important thing to do as well.
Yeah. And so give us what is the second part of really being aware of other people, I think is the,
Yeah. So when, in any new engagement with any prospect or client, we have to remember and kind of anticipate what might be going on for that buyer. I do think it's important to anticipate, but don't assume. So you want to kind of come to the table with an awareness of what might be going on. In general, people feel rushed, busy, overwhelmed. They need to know how they can save time and money. They need to know that you're not going to push something on them that they don't need or want. Those are all things that you want to keep in mind when you're working with others. Asking questions is a great way to understand. Again, we know the importance of questions in discovery and understanding what their needs and wants are, but just also in understanding, what's going on for them, what's important to them. on any level, whether it's understanding kind of what brought them into the work that they do, what their pressures are right now that they're dealing with, just understanding that. And of course, in a very delicate and sensitive way. You're not going to, this isn't therapy, right? And you're not going to ask questions that are too direct, but just really understanding what's going on for them. And then demonstrating your understanding, demonstrating empathy. Empathy in terms of kind of reflecting back to them what you've heard, but then also sharing stories and testimonials of other people who have been in a similar situation, taking them on a journey through a story that they can connect to emotionally, where the hero of the story is someone similar to them. Those are all things that can help to demonstrate empathy and understanding and help them to connect to you, where you're finding a common ground of understanding.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on with that. And I loved throughout the book the storytelling
Mm.
and like it gave a little bit more depth to the journey and to some of the advice you were giving throughout the book. So tell me, like, how do you use storytelling just in your sales process? Tell
Hmm.
me more about that.
Yeah, so storytelling is such a great way for your buyer to understand what you can do for them, and for them to be able to relate to other clients that you've helped,
Hmm.
clients who have faced similar challenges to what they're facing, or maybe it's not challenges, maybe it's also dreams and aspirations. I worked with healthcare practitioners for many years, and they are in their work with their whole heart, with the passion for helping people to get better, helping people to feel better, to achieve optimal health. They have a real passion for that. And sharing stories of other practitioners who have done the same, whether it's achieving great clinical outcomes for their patients by using the product line that I was representing, which was excellent, or whether it's sharing the story of a practitioner who achieved a doubling or tripling of their revenue through the supplement line. Those are all stories that can help connect that new prospect to a story of what's possible, helping them to see what's possible, speaking to their dreams and aspirations. It's a great thing to do.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I'm a big fan of just storytelling as a whole. I consider myself a storyteller as well. So thank you for sharing that. So, um, when you're looking at the book as a whole, someone who's new, who doesn't know you, I mean, I know what I got out of the book. I thought it was great. What do you think is like the three things they're going to walk away from with reading your book?
Hmm. So, one of the things that they'll walk away with is just hopefully an understanding of, again, how to build their EQ and how to connect to their heart in a more positive way, so that they can leverage the power of being connected to your heart, not just your mind. So
Hmm.
that's one thing. Another really important point that I emphasize in the book is the importance of releasing emotional attachment to the sale. Because even though we are driven by emotion, we kind of view the world through the lens of emotion, and the same for our buyers. It's really important to actually release emotional attachment to the sale so that you can be more present for your buyer. Being present and being of service, really showing up. As you said, it's not about you. Right?
Yeah.
It's not about you as the seller. And even if you're just, afraid of being pushy or salesy, even that, it's not about you. It's about, how can I be of service to my buyer? So, how to release that emotional attachment, how to show up and be of service. Those are all important aspects. And then how to really be how to really walk. In the second half of my book, I actually provide a lot of practical guidelines on questions that you can ask to establish rapport, questions that you can ask to dive deeper into the needs and wants of your customer. It's very common for us to talk too much. As sellers, we want to keep convincing people. We want to, it's kind of that nervous chatter, or, running through a list of features and benefits that fall on deaf ears. The second half of the book is a lot more practical in helping you to pace yourself and shift the conversation where you're asking questions rather than telling, in order to help establish a better connection with your buyer, but also to help enable them to share more about what's really going on so that you can serve them in the best possible way. So those are some of the key points that you can walk away with.
And I think it's so important. I mean, so often I see people rush to solutioning rather than doing the proper discovery that's really needed so that you understand the full picture. At one point, a couple questions ago, you mentioned therapy, that it's not therapy. In my experience, when I look back over my career, some of the best sales conversations almost felt like therapy, but it wasn't my therapy. It was their opportunity, asking questions to find out what was to the heart of the matter for them. Right.
Yeah. And you're right.
Yeah.
That it really can be that, because when you get to the heart of what's going on for your buyer in terms of, what, and it, of course, it depends on the industry, right? I've mentioned a couple of times, working with healthcare practitioners, they've got a real passion for it, but whatever it is, just really, you can, those meaningful conversations that really have nothing to do with your product in most cases, right? Your solution, you're not rushing to that, but you're really being present and understanding what's going on for them. And, when they feel that level of trust where they can share that with you. And so, Jen, it sounds like you've had them say, like, boy, this feels like therapy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because when you get to the heart of
yes.
how it impacts them, excuse me, personally, professionally, you get a greater understanding of who they are as a person, but you're never going to get to those types of questions without building up trust.
That's exactly
right. And so I think of it, I don't know if you've read Sherry Leviton's book, Heart and Soul. Right?
Yes.
And she compares it to the anatomy, in Discovery, the surface, the skin, like the surface level questions, the bone, what are the core things going on, and then the heart, why it really matters and how it will impact them in all the ways it can impact them. Will it mean like a promotion and getting somewhere they want to go in their career? Will it impact their personal life and how much time they're able to spend with their families? By making this change, how does it impact someone? And so when I thought about that book, which was one of my favorites in your book, I was like, it's just like a lot of love.
Yes, exactly. Because that's what it's all about. That's why we're here on this planet. We're all engaging in work that we love, but we're also, providing for families, and, the decisions that we make and that you make in that conversation can have a much deeper impact in so many ways on the lives of the people that you're working with. So yeah, it's really important. It's really important. The other thing that I wanted to mention too is that just the importance of listening. And I know that a lot of attention is being given to that now about, how to really listen, truly listen, be present. But we can't overemphasize that enough, is that you want to really listen. You ask your questions, ask your great questions, but you have to really listen to the answers. And part of why it's so important for us to flex our EQ with ourselves and our own self-awareness is because as sellers, sometimes we hear what we want to hear from our prospects, right? And so
Yeah.
you can't just listen to the words. You have to listen to the words behind the words. You have to listen to their tone and their body language, so that you can really be aware, have your finger on the pulse of what's actually being said. As just a simple example, you may ask, after presenting your solution, you may ask your buyer, can you see how this would benefit you in your practice? And if they say, yes, okay, they just said yes. And so if when we hear what we want to hear, then I would hear, yes, they can see it. But if I really remove my filter of what I'm hoping to hear, I listen to the tone of their answer. I observe their body language. I observe their eyes darting over, and I realize, no, they don't see the benefit. I haven't done a very good job of presenting my solution here, right? And
Right.
and so really learning how to listen fully and hear the words behind the words is what's so important, in order to really know truly what's being said. I mentioned earlier that sales actually I kind of came into sales later. So I had a first career as an Italian translator. For 15 years, I lived in Rome for 4 years, and then here in the Bay Area, I also worked as an Italian translator. And Italian is not my native language, of course, and so I speak Italian very fluently, but there are some words that I still don't know. And I remember being in situations where someone would say a word that I didn't know, that I wasn't familiar with, but listening with tone of voice, listening by observing body language, listening to the contextual, the context of what they were sharing, I could, of course, intuit what that word meant, right? And so even though there appears to be very little relationship between Italian translation and sales, it's really all about effective communication. And effective communication is listening with all of our senses, listening with your heart, which also gives you intuitive abilities. And when you can communicate effectively, that is when you can convey the benefits of whatever you have to offer. And that is when you're really understanding what other people need, so you can meet those needs and speak to those needs.
Yeah. If you're not listening, you're not doing it in a relevant way.
Exactly.
It's impossible to be relevant if you're not really listening to what it is that they actually need, as opposed to what your assumptions are.
Yes.
Well, we're at time.
Okay.
This went by so fast. We didn't get a lot of folks joining us live, but maybe they'll watch the replay, and
Yes.
that's okay too. So
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining me. This was a great conversation. I mean, I got a lot of value out of the book. I hope others do too.
Thank you.
And please check it out. There's a lot of instances where you have self-reflection that I think is super valuable to anyone looking at your values and just like the energy you bring. I think
Yes.
that's very powerful. So thank
Yes.
you so much.
Thank you, Jen. It's been really fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody. I'm gonna start having a more regular schedule again. It's just work's been crazy. What are you gonna do? But I miss doing my LinkedIn Live, so be on the lookout for more information about what's coming next.
Yes.
Hey, bye, everybody.
Sounds great. Bye-bye.